days are right. These days are right.
Hello everyone, my name is Noah, and today I'm going to be showing you how to master text in After Effects. Now it's been a while since we've done the last Let's Master tutorial, and I thought it was about time for a new one. And I asked on Twitter a few times actually what I should do next for my next Let's Master video, and it was pretty unanimous that all of you wanted me to do text. And let's take a look at some examples of what we're going to be learning today. So the first one is right here, and I'll shut up so you guys can see.
Boy, stinky boy.
Okay, so for these intros, I have done something special with the text. Oops, sorry. Speed at 0.5 so you can watch. Okay, so as you can see, I have a lot of stuff going on with the text here, and you'd probably be confused because you think I'm probably using an animator, right? A text animator, but you would be incorrect. I'm going to show you how I did the stuff like this, and also if I put this speed down so you can also see this. You can see I've done a lot of stuff with this text that obviously I think it should be pretty clear that this kind of stuff can't really be done with an animator, at least with the kind of detail that I have added with it. So let's just hop straight into After Effects and give this a look. So I'm going to set this to 16 bits per channel just so I have a bit more color, and let's make a new composition. I'm going to stick with these settings. Let's bump up the time a little bit and hit OK. You can copy these settings if you'd like. Oh, sorry. You can copy this if you want, but you can, do what you want with it. But this is what I like to stick with. So I'm going to turn this off so I have a nice black background. And let's make some text. Let's see. Let's make it I'm going to do all caps for this. Tutorial. And I'm going to pick a font. I'm going to either use Product Sans. No, I'm going to use Gotham. Bold. There we go. We'll do -50 kerning. Let's turn this up to 100. Okay, so the size is not really that important because you can always scale this up however you want because it's a vector layer, as you can see over this little star here. The first thing we're going to do is, as you can see, if I go ahead and drop down this layer, you can see we can have text animate. You can do, tracking and opacity and position. We're not going to mess with any of that today because, man, that stuff is just too hard to learn. I think we should go with a more traditional route and do a bit of problem solving here. So let's see, what kind of thing can we do? Let's do a text, little, I don't know what you call that, up and down wiggle if you like. Let's get a bit of problem solving. So how are we going to do that? Obviously we want to get each letter by itself and we want to position it up and then down and then we're done. So the way you might think of doing this is using an animator with position and adding a bounce expression or whatever, but you can't really control it much more than that with that animator. So what I like to do, and this might seem a bit weird at first, but don't worry, we're going to go through this together and we're going to make sure that it looks just fine and it will look better than an animator, trust me. So what we're going to want to do is however many letters you have in your text, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to make 7 duplicates, so we have a total of 8 layers. Now this seems like, whoa, we have so many layers. It's okay, relax. We're gonna do this real quick. So, you wanna go to your rectangle tool, or you can use the pen tool depending on the font you're using. It might be easier. But you want to go ahead and hit the layer, and then make a mask around your first letter. Make sure that it gets all of the letter. And we're going to repeat this process for each letter as we go. And this, essentially what we're doing is we're getting each letter on its own layer, and then we can control them all individually. Now the reason in doing this is we have a lot more control than if we were to use an animator. And see, I'm gonna have to use the pen tool because these letters kind of overlap. We could use the circle tool, it's okay. It doesn't really have to be precise. And once you have all of them separated out, then you can really do whatever the heck you want with them because, I mean, you can control each thing by itself. That's a lot of control that you get. So I just have one more letter, the L, and you can see if we go back to fit and then Open all these. It looks like we didn't do anything. That's because, well, we didn't. It looks the same as it did before, and that's the point. So what we're going to do now is select all the layers and go ahead and hit P on your keyboard. I'm also going to do R, Shift R, to add another attribute to the drop-down. I'm going to do position and rotation. Now, if you would like to, this is not something that I usually do, but you are completely welcome to, obviously, is to move the anchor point of the layer to the center of the letter. That's not something I'm going to do, and I will give a reason for that in a little minute. But let's quickly just do something real quick, and I'm actually going to explain why I'm not going to move the anchor point. This makes it a lot easier. So if we're doing position, you can see the position for this is 960 by 540. That is the direct center of my composition, and you can see all of the text has the same position because they all have the same anchor point. Watch right here. See in the middle, the anchor point is in the same place for each layer. It's because these are all technically the same layer, except we're only showing one letter on each layer. So what we can do is we can add a position, go in about half a second, bring it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then go into a second, and then bring it back down. And you can see that brings our letter up and then down. It's kind of boring at the moment, but we're going to make it a little bit better. So we can copy these, select all these layers, give it a paste, and now you can see they all go up and then all go down. Now if we would have moved the anchor point, then all of the letters would stack right on top of this T, and it wouldn't look particularly great. You would have to move each layer over to where it's supposed to be, and you'd have to individually do the keyframes for each layer. So the reason I'm not moving the anchor point is that makes it a lot quicker. You can just copy and paste the keyframes, and it makes it pretty easy. So I'm also going to add a rotation attribute. I'm going to do this for all the layers, and we're going to make it 10 degrees, and we'll bring it back down to 0. Now what we can do now is, if you have a plugin called Dojo Shifter, or I think there's one built into After Effects, you can use that to offset these layers by, I don't know, 3-4 frames. But I am totally fine with doing this manually, and let's actually get some smoothing on this. So you want to go ahead and select all your keyframes, go ahead and hit F9 on your keyboard, or if your function keys don't work, like if you're on a laptop or something, you can go to right click on the keyframe, keyframe assistant, easy ease, that'll do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to use motion V2 to do the smoothing. You can also go ahead and do it manually like this. I could do 100, or sorry, that's 10. I could crank it up to 100, and then it would smooth it out. But I think motion 2 is a bit faster, so I'm just gonna do some smoothing. If you're unfamiliar on how to do the smoothing with keyframes, then I will leave a different tutorial in the description. I think a friend of mine has a good tutorial on it. You can see our text goes up, rotates, comes back down. See, that looks kind of cool, but we have yet to offset it. So I'm actually going to snip this text at about 3 seconds. Snip. That shortcut I just did was Control-Shift-D, or Command-Shift-D on a Mac. And then we can offset these layers. I'm going to do it by 5 frames each time. And the strategy I'm doing right now is just a strategy I've formed for myself. You can, distribute the layers however which way you want, but I'm just using some keyboard shortcuts to get me to where I need to go, and this goes nice and quick, don't worry about it. So as you can see, all of the layers are offset, and I'm actually going to bring all these layers back to the beginning so you can see them, and here we go. Look at that bounce. Isn't that wonderful? What do you think of that? See, we just smoothed the keyframes. You could also do it with a bounce effector like I've done here. You can kind of see it has a little bounce effect. That's not what I'm going to be doing for this, just because I'd have to, go find my bounce expression. But now we're going to go ahead and take a look at how I did some of the text in this intro. So you can see the text all comes out. I'm just going to tell you right now that just like we keyframed the position and rotation, that beginning text transition was just scale. It's just keyframe the scale. And then this one, this is what I want to do. the quick rotation of the text. So luckily for us, the center of the text isn't directly in the center of the composition. As you can see, it's a bit offset, so it's going to look nicer. So at about 3 seconds, I'm actually gonna, I don't know why I snipped this text. I want this to go full length. I'm gonna extend these real quick. Okay, so what we're gonna do for the rotation here, let's go ahead and hit R. We've already did a rotation, but it's okay. Go ahead and hit the keyframe button right over here, and it should make a new keyframe. I'll skip in about, let's do 1.5 seconds, a nice slow transition. What I'm going to do is something a little bit different than what we just saw, and that is to go ahead and make all of these guys 360, and I'm going to offset them differently than we had before. So you can see it's just a rotation of the text, but that's really boring. So let's offset these. I'm going to do it by 2 frames each time, and you can see as I do this, you can kind of see that the letters are doing something kind of cool. Man, isn't this something that you don't really see every day in your average nerdy intro? Wow, would you look at that? I'd like to see someone try and do this with an animator. Good luck with that. This is a legitimate challenge. I want you to do this with an animator. And now we're gonna smooth these guys out. And oops. Get those up to 100 influence. And you can see it starts to have a really cool look like that. Wow, would you look at that? Have you ever seen that before? I don't think I have. You could also do this. Let's go ahead and undo that. Get these all back to the regular state. And what we can do is we can do what we did for this intro. And you can see the first little rotation of text starts with the 2 outermost letters, then the 2 middlemost layers, and then the 2 center layers. We can start through the middle, so you can see we have 8 layers. So the middle here would be layer 4 and 5. So then we can skip in 2 frames, and then everything that's not 4 and 5, we're going to move in by 2 frames. I'm actually going to do 5 instead. Give it a bit more offset. So you can see the middle 2 layers will spin before everything else. And this is better if you have an odd number of layers, then that would work a bit better. So I'm going to go in another 5 frames, and then we'll do these 2 layers. The one right above here, and you can kind of see we're starting to make like a backwards arrow shape with our keyframes here. You can kind of see what I'm doing with this. And you can see up in the viewport here, we're getting some pretty cool effects with this text here. Really just playing around with it. See, it's like a twirl effect. You guys aware with the distort twirl effect? That kind of looks like that, yeah? What do you think of that? I think that's a really cool look. A big part of doing this text stuff is really just, you know, experimenting and seeing what looks good, what people haven't done before. That's how you do unique stuff. Wow. So let's go back to this one. This one has a lot more stuff going on with the text. So you can see the text comes up from the bottom, and then it fades away with text cutting it out, like so. And then you can see text comes up like that, and then from the side, and all sorts of cool stuff going on. So we're going to kind of recreate this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and delete all the attributes that I've already done, just because I want to get a fresh start, and we're going to do a bit of a mock-up design here. So what we can do is, let's see, I want to duplicate this layer and remove the mask. And you can kind of see, let's skip this in by about 1 second. I'm going to make this really slow. In the actual intro, it's like 1 second of transitions and stuff, but it's okay. Let's do S and P. We'll end it at about 1 second. And at the beginning, we'll do down there and 0. And smooth these guys out. So you can see we have a bit of that going on. Yeah, let's do 100 actually. Oh shoot. Oh, I see. Get out of here, text. Go away. Okay. So then what we can do is do this guy, skip in, offset this. Oops. Sorry. Offset that. You can see the text kind of comes up and then lays right on top. And what we can do is use an alpha matte. If you know how those work, then this should be no problem for you. But if you don't, then just follow my steps here. So the layer that's going to cut away the text, you want that on top and offset by about 10-15 frames-ish. And then select the layer that you want cut away and do alpha matte inverted. You can see that where we have a bit of, you know, stuff left behind. So we can actually add a stroke to this just to remove that, and we'll turn that down to like 2, just so it's not too huge. So let's give that a look. See, that's kind of a cool look. And then let's see what else went on here. So then we had the text coming up. Oh, I know exactly how I did that. Alright, so let's offset this a little bit. Let's start at about 1.5 seconds. Bring this guy in. We'll do P, S, R, T. Position, scale, rotation, and opacity. I don't know why opacity is T. I wish they would have picked something better. That's okay. We're actually going to reset these values back to 0 rotation and 100 scale. So, as a fresh start, let's go into about a second after this starts and give these all a big keyframe, just so this is what we end with. And let's get back to the beginning. And let's do the rotation manually. So what we want to do, as you can see for this, the rotation for these guys comes from the center. And you can see that the D isn't going to rotate at all because it's in the middle. Now, unfortunately, we have an even number of letters in the world tutorial, so we're going to have to do rotation like this. So I'm going to do -90 on this guy. Actually, no, we're going to do a little less than that, -70 maybe. And then for the L on the bottom, we're going to do +70. You can kind of see that this gives a like that. You can kind of see where we're going with this. Let's do +60 this guy, and then a -60 on this guy. Okay, looking good. We'll do -50 on here. And then +50 on here. And we'll do +40 and -40. Now, once again, another benefit of not moving the anchor point, as you can see, they all rotate from the same point and come out like so. So now we can also move all of these down a little bit. Set the opacity to 0 and the scale to about 50. You can see really quickly we just made a really cool text animation. Once I give this a bit of easing, we can give this a look. I'll bring this in so you can see all of it, and we'll see how this looks. Obviously, you'd probably want this to be a bit quicker of a transition. You can kind of see what we've done right there. And I'm actually going to go ahead and set all the opacity of these guys not eased, just because that's something that generally doesn't look too great if you ease it. Let's give that a look. There we go. And maybe a bit of offset is due here. So let's go to, since we have 10 layers now, the center of these layers is going to be 6 and 7, so 5 and 8. We'll move in by 5 frames. Actually, no, I'm going to do this opposite. So these guys will move in by 5 frames. Move these guys in 10 frames after that. And go back 5. And move these guys. Oops. Kind of see we got a bit of an offset going on here. Whoa. Check that out. Ain't that a hot meme? Okay, now what we have next. There's not much to it really. There's a bit more here. Let's see. So we have the text like so, and then a bit of a fade thing going on. Okay. So now we just need another one of these guys, and we'll set that back to visible. change the scale. Let's actually go ahead and delete all these attributes. Set the scale of this guy to like 120. You can see that's on top, and we can make this a different color. Let's make it, let's actually remove the stroke. Let's make this guy a nice bright, whatever you call this color, like light pink. I don't know what you call that. Let's see. Now we want to make a new solid. This color of this doesn't matter because it's not going to be seen. And let's switch the scale. Go ahead and untick the chain here and set that to like 10. No, 7.5. There we go. And we'll make the rotation of this guy maybe 25. You can kind of see. We can now bring that across, and that'll be the mask for our text. So if we go ahead and hit alpha matte, you can see once we move this across, you can kind of see where we're going with this. Let's go back to about 3/4 of a second. Nope, we're gonna hit the position. And we'll go to about 2 seconds. Bring that guy all the way across. And ease that guy. Let's see, we got a bit of a thing going on here. Looks kind of cool. Ain't that a nice one? That's a nice addition. Give it a little bit of color. That's a nice touch. I like it. So, let's see, what else can we add? We have a bit of a line thing going on here, but we'll do that in a second. You can see we have the bit of a text bounce. We already covered that, so we're not going to do that again. You can see we have a bit of a rotation thing, and then a bit of opaque text coming out. So now what we can do actually is to optimize a little bit. I think I covered this in my previous Let's Master, but optimization is something that's pretty important if your PC isn't particularly great. So we're going to cut these guys and then copy this, put that on top, bring it in, and drag it to the end, and remove all the attributes and the mask. So you can see when it cuts, it doesn't look like anything changes, but it goes from 8 layers to 1. You can see that's a bit of an optimization thing for you. And once all these transitions finish at about 2 seconds, we can cut all these guys too. That just cuts down on our render time a bit, so you can see it already just rendered all those frames for us, which is real quick. So now we can make this guy a 3D layer. Go ahead and hit R, and we'll do this at about 2.5 seconds. We're going to hit X rotation, go in about a second, and make that guy 360. And ease it. We'll do about there. You can see rotation like so. I'll also do a scale with that, just so it looks a little bit better. 120. Now I'll ease those guys. And you can kind of see that. And we're actually going to copy this guy and bring the end of this transition up farther. And go ahead and hit T, Shift U to get all your keyframes in here. And then we'll start with a scale of 0 and an opacity of 75. And we'll end with 0. So you can kind of see we got a bit of a... Oh shoot, hold on. The rotation we're going to want to match with this guy so it looks nice and good. And the scale we're going to make to like 150. Let's give that a look. See, that's pretty cool. What do you think of that? Sorry, I'm being a bit silly. Alright. Let's give our final product a bit of a look here. Whoa. I like it. Alright, so there's also one more thing I wanted to cover in this video. I know it's getting a bit long now, we're about 30 minutes. I wanted to revisit letter tracing. If you know, let's go ahead and give my website a visit. Completely random promotion. We have letter tracing in After Effects. Let's prepare to cringe. This is really old. This is, let's see, today's the 21st that I'm recording this. This is almost a year old now. Oh my gosh. You can see our final product doesn't look too great. So I think it's about time that we give this a bit of a revisit, because there's been some changes in my strategy. We're gonna make a new composition for this. Let's do some easy text. Let's do, wow, text. Gotham black. Sure, I think that's the boldest it gets. Do negative 25 kerning on that guy. Actually, let's put this to 0. And we'll do this to 150. Oh, not that big. 150. There we go. Center this guy. Okay, so step 1 of tracing your text for animations is go ahead and go to your pen tool and get your stroke ready to go. You can see my stroke is a bit cranked right now. Let's put that down to 20. Obviously that's not going to be precise right away, so what you want to do is you want to go to your straightest letter. Let's use the T. If you have like an L or an I or something like that that you can easily compare, you want to go ahead and make your line from this edge of the text to that edge of the text. You can see, ooh, we're actually just about on the right width there. So let's say you had it down to like 11 or something. This is going to need some adjusting. You need to bring this up a little bit so it fits your text. 26, maybe 25 looks about good for this. It's okay if it's not perfect, because if we're zoomed out about this far, it's not going to really make a difference. So that's actually our first line. So as you can see, now we just kind of repeat this process for all your text using the pen tool. Go ahead and hold shift while you're doing this to ensure that your line is nice and straight up and down. You can see that this scale, or this stroke width, is not the same for the bottom here, but that's okay because we want some stroke consistency. We don't want it to be like different widths and then it'll look a bit weird once you go ahead and do that. Even though the font might have different widths, it'll look a bit weird if you try and do that. Now, one thing that I see a lot of people do is everyone makes everything one individual line, like I just did. I mean, with the T, there's not really much you can do to make it one line. But with the E, for example, they would make a line like this. Wow, a line. Then they come down and they make a line like this. Wow, another line. It's like, that's a lot of lines. I think it'd be a bit easier if you go to the middle here, bring it down to about the middle there, and bring it down to the edge. You can see that's all one shape. Obviously this is going to need some adjusting, so it gets nice and centered. Just try and ballpark it a little bit. And you can see we have less lines to deal with and less keyframes to paste. See, there's our E in 2 layers instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 layers for each line of the E. Now when it comes to a letter like an X or an R or an A, you can kind of see that if we were to go ahead and start up here and end down here, you can see, well, obviously with some adjustment you can get the shape just right. You can kind of see that we have a triangle exposed here and too much triangle up here. Bit of a, what are those called? Scalene triangle. There we go. But what you want to do is make sure that your line engulfs the text completely, so you don't have any extra, gaps. So if we were to get rid of hide this text, you can see we have a bit of a gap where the rest of this X would go. You want to make sure that you don't have any gaps. Bring this guy down. Make sure it covers the whole thing. And what I'm actually going to do is get a little bit more advanced with it. Just make a repeater, and we'll bring this down to 2, just so I don't have to make another layer. We'll go ahead and set the scale to -100, and there we go. Let's see, we have our X taken care of, and we're going to address these crazy edges in just a second here. I'm going to go ahead and actually, since we have 2 T's, I'm going to go ahead and copy those guys and move them over. And I'm not going to move the layer, just because, like I said before, we want to keep the anchor point in the center, so I'm going to move the actual path itself instead, so we don't have to worry about it. So if we were trying to do text animation, like I covered earlier, we don't have to worry about the anchor point being centered because we moved the actual shape and not the layer. So you can see all of these should have an anchor point set to the middle of the composition here. So what we can now do is add some animation. So you want to go ahead and hit your layer. You can add up here, or you can drop it down and hit add down here and go to trim paths. You can see we have a bit of trimming action. That's kind of what the name implies. Go into about a second. We'll bring this end up to 100 and ease this guy. Bring that all the way up. You can see, zoop, there's our T, well, half our T. And then we're actually going to paste all these on there. You can see, zoop, there is our animation. That looks really disgusting. So let's offset these by, let's do 2 frames actually. 1, 2, offset. This might take a sec, I might cut this out. So now that we have a bit of an offset action going on, you can see our text is now traced. But once again, we have to worry about this pesky X getting in the way, ruining our style here, looking all disgusting. So what we can do is go ahead and solo this text layer here, and we're gonna make, wow, a rectangle. Wow, I didn't see this coming. Except I did, because I'm the one teaching this lesson here. So we're gonna make a rectangle covering the X. And I bet you can't really guess what we're gonna do with this unless you guessed it, which, well, you guessed it. So we're gonna unsolo these guys, hide our text. Which one of these is the X? This one. So we're gonna bring this guy above it and alpha matte. You can see now the X will not leave the confines of that rectangle we just made. If you didn't really understand what I just did there, then go ahead and give it a rewind and try and interpret it your way. If you don't know how alpha mattes work, then where have you been? No, I'm just kidding. I'll try my best to link in a tutorial for it. Alpha mattes, because it's really not that hard of a concept to grasp. It's just that some people don't quite understand how it works. So you can see we have our text taken care of here. And what we can do actually is go ahead and pre-compose these guys. Let's make this text. And I'm actually going to copy this composition here, text 2, bring this guy in, offset this by about 10 frames, and go into text 2. This is something, obviously, this is just a bit of an extra style if you don't want to worry about it. And let's undo that, and let's make this blue, and we'll make this down to 15. You can see we have a bit of blue text instead. This is going to need some adjusting, obviously, to accommodate for the new size change of the stroke here. So let's go ahead and select on this layer. G is the shortcut for the pen tool, if you think that's useful. And we can make some adjustments to the text, make sure it works. And you'll see in just a second what we're doing here. See our text looks just fine. Composition 2, you can see what we're doing here is a bit of black magic. Whoa! We can take this a step further by adding maybe a transition Venetian blinds, 45, 50, 75? No, not 75. 25. Aha! Here we go. Check that out. Just a bit of cutting, make it look kind of cool. Maybe we can do, I don't know, maybe a turbulent displace. How's that look? Amount 50, size 25. Whoa. That might just be a bit of a text accent, actually. So really the options are kind of endless with what you can do with tracing text here. You can get a bit more creative with the text, doing, you know, different animations other than just trimming it, but that's about as in-depth as I'm willing to go with it for today. I might go a bit advanced in the future, but for now I'm gonna stick with the simplicity of just tracing, get a bit of a text animation kind of stuff going on here with the individual layers. That's a bit of a tutorial for you guys. I hope you found this useful. This is really all I'm really willing to cover today. I really want to pick up Let's Master again. I know it's been about 2 months since the last video, and that's a really long wait. So I'm hoping to do these every couple of weeks. So, you know, don't really hold me to that, because this last week of school is going to be a bit busy, but then I basically have all of summer to be helping you guys improve yourselves as designers. So once again, if you found this video helpful, please leave a like on the video. That would be much appreciated. And if you have a friend who might find this video useful, please give this a share to them. I'm sure they will be grateful that you're giving them more text knowledge. Why would you need a Lamborghini when you can have After Effects tutorials for some knowledge? So, that's about it from me, you guys. I hope you enjoyed. Give a subscribe if you want to see more tutorials and such like this. Obviously, I'm trying to pick this up a bit more. And before I continue to ramble, I'm going to end the video here, guys. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. See ya! That was cringe.